Hey everybody, Eric Hayden here on YouTube. Another rainy morning here in Eastern North Carolina. I always talk about having a rain gauge, and this is our rain gauge. When the inner cylinder fills up over the inch mark, you know you had a substantial rain. Looks like well over an inch has fallen last night. And of course I heard the rain, so I knew it was raining last night, but I cannot say enough about having a rain gauge to accurately measure how much rain has fallen. When you're sleeping, you don't know how much rain is coming down, and you might be surprised. Sometimes you get a lot more than you think, and other times you get a lot less. So you have to be a little lax on the roses in terms of what you expect from them during a rainy period. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. We've had 5 straight days of rain, optimal conditions for black spot, and I've been really happy with the roses. Of course, you saw a prior video. I've been sneaking out here when I can in between the rains. I did that the other morning and we lucked out. We didn't have much rain after that, so that was certainly good news. And the roses are responding despite the rainy period. We don't have much in terms of black spot in the garden, which again, if you've been growing roses for a while, is amazing considering the climate we've had this past week. One thing I'm going to do, and I might do a video on this coming up, is I'm going to take some cuttings. I've got some blooms in the garden, and that's a real good time as the blooms fade to take a cutting of a rose where you can make an exact copy of the rose itself. So in this case, Dublin, if I get a cutting to succeed, I'll have a nice copy of Dublin. I'm going to start to do that here over the next week or so. I've got some rooting hormone in the mail. I'm trying something a little stronger. I've done some past videos, and I know there's more detailed videos out online. But my gardening update is just kind of a video blog. So since that's something I'm going to be working on, I'll detail it. This is Louise Estes. If you watch our page, this particular rose was a maiden rose delivered last April, potted up in a 2-gallon container, let it get bigger. Planted it late last summer, and you can see it's a huge rose now. So I really I'm big fan of those maiden roses. If you've got some time and some patience, this is Claire Elise looking good. So for the most part, things are looking good in the garden. I have a little bit of black spot that started on Marilyn Monroe, so I've been especially mindful of that. I've been getting out here in spring when I can, in between the wet periods, at weekly intervals, and that certainly helped out. I mentioned taking a cutting, so I'm going to try to reproduce some of these varieties of roses that I have, but also I'm going to try to get into some grafting down the road. And these long whips of Fortuniana, usually you want to break those off. These are what we call suckers. This is the Moonstone, or the Cajun Moon, the variety I want. It was grafted down here. Here's the bud union, and anything coming below your bud union is a sucker. And sometimes we get questions online like, is it a sucker or not? Let it grow just a little bit and then it becomes obvious. Look at the difference in leaves between the ones on the right, which are Cajun Moon, the variety I want, and the one on the left, which is Fortuniana. I've let these grow longer because I want to take cuttings of those. Hopefully, if I get some Fortuniana to take, I'm going to start to do my own grafting. I've mentioned some issues with viruses. I want clean roses, so I'm going to try to get into some of my own grafting, because as far as I know, everything in this garden is clean. I've been watching it like a hawk, so I can go ahead and start some propagation. Wish you could smell this. This is Dolly Parton. You'll notice in the background, Mr. Lincoln looking good, and Double Delight. It kind of snuck up on me, the second flush. It seems like we just ended one, and that's one quick point I want to make. With these lighter petaled roses, and what I mean by that is not as many petals, they tend to bloom quicker in terms of their cycling. So if you have a wide variety in your garden, we've got Headliner, Mr. Lincoln, Dolly Parton, Double Delight. They are already in their second phase of bloom cycle. So we already have color. After a minor lull in blooms, we've got more coming. Meanwhile, I mentioned different varieties. Something like a Firm has a lot of petals, other than this one straggler bloom down here. Everything else is just now starting to get to bud form, so it's a couple weeks behind. So it's nice if you have many varieties, whether or not you just grow hybrid teas, If you still have different ones, in this case Marlin's Day, mostly past peak, so now we're looking ahead to new blooms, and they're about 3 weeks behind Dolly Parton, Double Delight, Mr. Lincoln. So that's a nice way to spread out your color. Want to do an update on the maidens this year. Again, this is another maiden rose from last year, Louise Estes. This is Maverick. If you look at our channel and go back, I've received this in very, very early spring, potted it up in a 2-gallon container. Now it's in a 5-gallon container. And if you look at the past videos, I cut the top of the multiflora off. And then here's the graft down here. Here's 1 cane, 2 canes, and here's a new one starting up. So it's looking very, very healthy. We'll let that get root bound in the 5-gallon container. I've had a lot of luck. Pot it up small, 2 gallons, then go to 5, and then put it in the garden mid to late summer. Plenty of time to get established by winter time. And this bloom has been beat up, but you can see the color on it. Very, very nice. That rose will be in real good shape. It'll look like this, or the other Louise I just showed you, by next year. So if you have some patience, maidens are a nice way to get started. This is another example, cut off the top of the multiflora, 3 strong canes, and this is Cajun Moon, another one of that. This is a nice color. This is on Own Root. This is Eddie Edwards, and I like how some roses just hold up to the rain. I mean, you can tell that, yes, it's got some watermarks on it, but you can't beat that spiral form and the coloring. And this is with 5 days of rain and no protection on the bloom, so looking quite nice. So that's it. The other thing growing in the garden are these squash. I'm gonna have to harvest these. If you ever grow squash, you probably know that it goes from real small to real big in just a matter of a couple days. A couple days ago, they were just this size, and they're really growing pretty nicely. So all in all, the garden's looking good. I've been staying on top of the spray program. I mentioned downy mildew. I don't see any evidence of that spreading. I think that's over with. We had some powdery mildew, still some evidence of that on the top of this Alina, but I sprayed Eagle mycobutanol a couple days ago, and I cut out anything that was really bad. And as far as spider mites go, I know they're still here, but with Avid that I sprayed and our rainy weather, hopefully those will not get any worse than they already are. So that's it from the garden. Again, highlighting that having a rain gauge is certainly a good thing, and look for some videos coming up. Hopefully we get some rooting going and can multiply some of these roses in our garden. And I also mentioned the spray routine. Really being good with that during periods of wet weather can help you get through it. I know when you have an all-day rain you can't spray, but even on a rainy day there's often an hour, 2, 3 of dry weather, and if you can sneak in some spray material, that can help with any black spot. This is another one that's blooming as I wrap it up. Dublin Bay Climber. Again, not a lot of petals, so it's a quicker repeat, and that's a beautiful color. This is rated over 8 on the disease resistance. It had a little downy mildew, but that can happen. But this was planted last year. In fact, if you go to my video from 10 months ago, this was just this whole garden was completely new, and it's looking really, really good right now. Hope everyone's staying dry, and those that want rain will be getting some shortly. Have a great day, everybody.